When water slips through your fingers, the hidden psychology of true liberation. There's an ancient wisdom hidden in the simplest of gestures. Picture a wanderer by a crystal stream, desperately trying to capture the flowing water in his cupped palms. The harder he grips, the faster it escapes between his fingers. Only when he finally relaxes his hold does he discover something remarkable. The water that remains, resting gently in his open hands, is exactly what he needs. This isn't just a story about water, it's a mirror reflecting our deepest human struggle. Learning when to hold on and when to let go. The weight of what we carry. Most of us navigate life carrying invisible burdens we've forgotten we're even holding. We clutch outdated versions of ourselves, relationships that have run their course, and dreams that once sparkled with possibility, but now feel more like chains. We tell ourselves we're being loyal, persistent, or hopeful, but sometimes what we call dedication is actually fear wearing a more acceptable mask. The human brain, sculpted by millions of years of survival instinct, treats all loss as potential danger. Neuroscientists have discovered that losing something triggers pain signals roughly twice as intense as the pleasure we feel from gaining something equivalent. This phenomenon, known as loss aversion, explains why we remain trapped in situations that no longer serve us. The devil we know feels safer than the angel we haven't met. But what if our resistance to change is actually preventing the very growth we desperately need? The neurological dance of release. When we finally choose to release what we've been gripping too tightly, something fascinating happens in our brains. The amygdala, that ancient alarm system responsible for fear and emotional reactivity, begins to quiet down. Brain imaging studies show that acceptance literally rewires our neural pathways, creating space for clarity where chaos once lived. This isn't mystical thinking, it's measurable science. People who practice letting go show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for emotional regulation and wise decision-making. They become less reactive, more responsive. They stop living in constant fight or flight mode and start experiencing what psychologists call emotional equilibrium. Think of it this way: holding on to what's gone is like constantly pressing the emergency brake while trying to drive forward. Letting go isn't giving up, it's finally releasing that brake so you can actually move. The art of loving from a distance. One of the most profound misconceptions about letting go is that it requires becoming cold or indifferent. The opposite is true. Real release often means learning to love more purely, without the contamination of neediness, without the desperation to possess or control. Consider the parent who must watch their child grow up and move away, or the friend who witnesses someone they care about making choices they wouldn't make themselves. Mature love learns to say, "I wish you well on your journey, even if that journey leads you away from me." This isn't emotional abandonment, it's emotional sophistication. It's the difference between loving someone for what they give you and loving them for who they are, independent of your needs. The somatic memory of holding on our bodies, remember what our minds try to forget. Unresolved emotional tension lives in clenched jaws, raised shoulders, shallow breathing patterns. The phrase "carrying the world on your shoulders" isn't metaphorical, it's often literally visible in our posture. This is why some people experience sudden emotional releases during yoga classes, massage sessions, or long walks in nature. The body finally feels safe enough to release what it's been storing. Physical movement becomes emotional movement. Breath becomes the bridge between holding on and letting go. Progressive muscle relaxation, deep breathing exercises, and mindful movement practices aren't just stress relief techniques. They're tools for teaching your nervous system that it's safe to unclench, safe to soften, safe to release. Rewriting your internal narrative. The human mind heals through storytelling. When we can take our painful experiences and weave them into a coherent narrative that includes growth, wisdom, and meaning, we transform from victims of our circumstances into authors of our own understanding. Research shows that people who spend just 15 minutes a day writing about difficult experiences show measurable improvements in both mental and physical health within weeks. The act of organizing chaotic emotions into structured thoughts literally reorganizes how our brains process those memories. You're not rewriting history, you're reclaiming your relationship with it. You're shifting from asking "why did this happen to me?" to "what did this teach me?" That subtle change in perspective transforms everything. The paradox of control. We live under the illusion that if we just try hard enough, care deeply enough, or strategize cleverly enough, we can control outcomes. But true power often lies in recognizing the limits of our influence and focusing our energy where it can actually make a difference. Eastern philosophy calls this wu-wei meanness, effortless action, or knowing when not to force. It's the difference between swimming against a current and learning to navigate with it. You're still actively engaged, still making choices, but you're working with reality rather than against it. This doesn't mean becoming passive or apathetic. It means becoming strategic about where you invest your emotional energy. It means distinguishing between what you can influence and what you must simply experience. The seasons of letting go healing doesn't follow a linear timeline. Like seasons, our emotional weather patterns cycle through periods of release and return, acceptance and resistance. You might think you've let go of something completely, only to have it resurface weeks or months later with surprising intensity. This isn't failure, it's how emotional integration actually works. Each time a difficult memory or feeling returns, it typically comes back a little lighter, a little less charged. Psychologists call this emotional extinction, the gradual weakening of painful associations until they no longer trigger the same intense reactions. Be patient with this process. Your brain is literally rebuilding neural pathways, creating new emotional highways that bypass the old pain routes. This construction project takes time, and there will be days when you have to take detours around areas that are still under repair. The gift of impermanence. In a culture obsessed with permanence and security, we often forget that impermanence is not life's flaw, it's life's feature. The sunset doesn't apologize for ending. The flower doesn't resist wilting. The seasons don't cling to their previous forms. What if we could approach our own changes with the same grace? What if we could see endings not as failures but as completions? What if we could understand that some chapters of our lives are meant to be exactly as long as they are, no longer, no shorter? When you stop demanding that beautiful things last forever, you become more present with them while they're here. When you stop fearing that difficult things will never end, you develop the resilience to move through them with greater ease. Creating sacred space. Every major spiritual tradition includes rituals of release, funeral rites, purification ceremonies, seasonal celebrations that mark transitions. These aren't outdated superstitions. They're psychologically sophisticated tools for helping the human psyche process change. You can create your own release rituals. Write a letter to someone you'll never send, then burn it and scatter the ashes. Visit a place that holds difficult memories and intentionally create new ones there. Plant seeds in soil, mixed with ashes from something you're ready to transform. These symbolic acts communicate with your subconscious mind in ways that pure logic cannot. They signal to your entire system, mental, emotional, and physical that a transformation is taking place. The collective wisdom of release. You're not the first person to struggle with letting go, and you won't be the last. Throughout history, humans have grappled with loss, change, and the challenge of moving forward. The fact that every culture has developed practices and wisdom traditions around release suggests that this struggle is not just personal, it's universal. There's comfort in this recognition. Your pain is not unique or shameful. It's part of the shared human experience of learning to love fully while holding lightly, to engage deeply while remaining unattached to outcomes. The neuroscience of new beginnings. When you finally release what you've been holding on to, you don't just eliminate something from your life. You create space for something new to emerge. The brain abhors a vacuum. When old neural patterns weaken, new ones have room to form. This is why people often experience sudden bursts of creativity, new relationships, or unexpected opportunities in the months following a major release. It's not coincidence, it's neurobiology. When you stop investing mental and emotional energy in maintaining what's already gone, that energy becomes available for recognizing and creating what's actually possible. The quiet revolution of acceptance. Acceptance is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in psychology. It doesn't mean approval, resignation, or passive submission. It means stopping the exhausting argument between what is and what you wish were true. It means redirecting the enormous energy you've been spending on resistance toward adaptation and growth. When you accept that someone has chosen to leave your life, you stop wasting energy trying to convince them to stay and start investing it in creating a life that feels complete without them. When you accept that a particular dream isn't going to unfold as you imagined, you become available to discover dreams you never would have considered. Acceptance is not the end of hoping, it's the beginning of hoping more wisely. The ripple effect of release. When you learn to let go with grace, you don't just transform your own life, You become a model for others who are struggling with their own attachments. Your peace becomes permission for their peace. Your willingness to move forward despite uncertainty gives others courage to take their own necessary steps. Children especially learn more from what they observe than what they're told. When they see the adults in their lives navigating change with resilience and wisdom rather than clinging and desperation, they internalize that this is how humans can be with difficulty. You become part of breaking generational cycles of emotional rigidity, showing that it's possible to love deeply without possessing completely. The evolutionary purpose of pain from an evolutionary perspective. Emotional pain serves a purpose. It motivates us to avoid situations that threaten our survival, or well-being. But in our complex modern world, our ancient alarm systems sometimes sound warnings about situations that aren't actually dangerous, just unfamiliar. Learning to distinguish between pain that's protecting you and pain that's limiting you is a crucial life skill. Sometimes discomfort is your intuition telling you to move away from something harmful. Other times, it's your fear trying to keep you from growing beyond your current limitations. The key is learning to sit with discomfort long enough to understand what it's actually communicating. Is this pain pointing towards something you need to address, or is it simply the growing pains of becoming who you're meant to be? The practice of daily release letting go isn't a one-time event, it's a daily practice, like exercise or meditation. Each morning, you have the opportunity to set down what you don't need to carry. Each evening, you can consciously release the tensions and disappointments of the day. This might look like a few minutes of deep breathing before bed, a gratitude practice that shifts your focus from what's missing to what's present, or simply the conscious choice to not rehash yesterday's conversations or tomorrow's worries while trying to fall asleep. These small, consistent acts of release train your nervous system to default toward peace rather than anxiety, toward presence rather than rumination. The wisdom of timing, one of the hardest lessons to learn, is that everything has its season. Relationships, career paths, living situations, even aspects of your own personality, they all have natural life cycles. Trying to extend something beyond its natural conclusion is like trying to keep flowers blooming in winter. This doesn't mean giving up too easily or avoiding commitment. It means developing the sensitivity to recognize when something has run its course and the courage to honor that completion. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to release someone to find what you cannot give them. Sometimes the most growth-oriented choice is to leave a comfortable situation that's keeping you small. Sometimes the wisest decision is to let go of who you used to be in order to become who you're meant to be. The art of emotional integration, healthy letting go, doesn't mean pretending something didn't matter or trying to forget it ever happened. It means integrating the experience into your larger story in a way that honors its significance while preventing it from defining your future. This is the difference between suppression and resolution. Suppression pushes difficult emotions underground where they continue to influence your behavior unconsciously. Resolution processes them fully, extracts their wisdom and files them away in a place where they can inform your future choices without controlling them. Think of it like composting. You're not throwing away your difficult experiences, you're allowing them to decompose into something that can nourish new growth. The liberation of authenticity. Often what we're really holding on to isn't a person or situation, it's a version of ourselves that we're afraid to outgrow. We cling to familiar patterns of thinking and behaving because they feel safe even when they no longer serve us. True letting go sometimes means releasing the image you've held of yourself and allowing your authentic nature to emerge. This can feel like betraying your past self, but it's actually honoring your capacity for growth and change. You're not who you were 5 years ago, and you won't be the same person 5 years from now. That's not inconsistency. That's evolution. Embracing this natural process of becoming allows you to move through life with greater flexibility and less internal resistance. The courage of vulnerability. Letting go requires tremendous courage because it means facing uncertainty without guarantees. When you release what's familiar, even if it's painful, you enter unknown territory where you can't predict or control what happens next. This vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of all genuine growth and connection. When you stop hiding behind the false security of known suffering and step into the possibility of unknown joy, you reclaim your power to create your life rather than simply endure it. The return to presence. Perhaps the greatest gift of learning to let go is that it returns you to the present moment. When you're not constantly looking backward with regret or forward with anxiety, your attention becomes available for what's actually here now. And what's here now is where all real joy, peace, and connection exist. The past is memory, the future is imagination, the present is experience, and experience is where life actually happens. When you stop trying to drag the past into the present or escape the present into the future, you discover that this moment, exactly as it is, contains everything you need to take the next right step, the gentle practice of letting go. If you're ready to begin this practice, start small. Notice one thing you've been holding on to that no longer serves you, minus a grudge, a regret, an expectation, a fear. Spend a few minutes each day consciously breathing space around it. Don't force release, just create some breathing room. Practice saying phrases like, I release my need to control this situation, or I love you enough to let you go, or I trust that what's meant for me will find me. Let these words move through your body, not just your mind. Notice how it feels to unclench, even slightly. Notice how it feels to direct your energy toward what's actually possible, rather than what's already gone. The ongoing journey, remember that mastering the art of letting go is a lifelong practice, not a destination. There will be days when you feel light and free, and days when you find yourself gripping tightly again. Both are normal parts of the human experience. The goal isn't to become someone who never gets attached or never feels loss. The goal is to become someone who can hold things lightly while loving them fully. Someone who can engage deeply while remaining unattached to outcomes. You're learning to dance with impermanence rather than fight it. To see change as a partner rather than an enemy. This is perhaps the most sophisticated form of emotional intelligence, the ability to participate fully in life while holding it all with an open hand. In the end, letting go is not about losing what you love. It's about loving wisely enough to set it free. And in that freedom, you might just discover that what was truly meant for you never needed to be grasped at all. It was simply waiting for you to open your hands wide enough to receive it.